episode of The Spicy Life. I am your host, Spicy Mari, and joined with me as always is my lovely co-host, Dr. Ali.
What up?
And we have a very special guest today with us, the beautiful Letty Martinez. Hi. That now goes by Letty Peniche.
Yeah, I'm married.
She got married. She got married. Letty is now, a wife, a mother, but you guys probably know her as a hip hop expert and personality. And so she's gonna get in on this juicy conversation with us today about jealousy.
I know. I saw your feature.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Ali and I actually have been appearing every now and then on a little show called Access Hollywood Live.
Yes,
NBC, where we're able to contribute, relationship advice and coaching for audience.
Right.
And so the last topic that we talked about was jealousy, but we didn't get to really dive into it as much as I would have liked to expand on. So I thought today's episode, we would discuss some of the things that you experience in past relationships when it comes to jealousy, or even maybe with friends. But before we ever start off with our topic, we always welcome our guests and make them warm up a little bit.
Okay.
So we're gonna start you off to get you warmed up.
Don't act like we're not friends, okay? Like, this is
Okay,
so
fine.
weird.
Letty's been my friend forever.
I don't need to warm up to you guys.
She's pretending like you've never met each other before.
Right.
You're strangers.
Hi, Letty. I'm Spicy. Nice to meet
Exactly.
you. Letty and I, okay, fine. You recognize these two faces together from 92.3 back in the day. But she's also like my really great friend. And so when it comes to talking relationships, like she's always been someone who's encouraged me to follow my passion. She's always been open with me. And I got to see the unfolding of, Jorge and her marriage. So, but in order to get you, yes, because you still have to get
For the
warmed
show,
up.
yeah.
For the show, she has to play the or game. So you have to choose between these things, okay?
Okay.
So, and you have to do it quickly. Passion or security?
Passion.
Doritos or potato chips?
Doritos.
Chile or tamarindo?
Tamarindo.
Beer or tequila?
I can't stomach either. Like, I suck at both. Probably beer is easier for me to take down than.
What?
But also, I've went with Mari and I've seen, it was your birthday a couple years ago and they had a whole little entree of tequila shots. It was like this weird tower.
We always have tequila. I don't remember.
And I'm just like, how do you do that? Like, it was literally a taste test of different tequilas.
It was delicious though. I love tequila.
That's
so
when I knew you were
on
really
tequila.
spicy.
That was a question for her.
Yeah,
that was her own
This is
question.
your segue.
Okay, and then
Tequila.
last one, morning sex or night sex before bed?
Probably night, because I want to sleep after sex. And so if you want to sleep after sex in the morning, then you're just going to ruin your day.
Who are morning sex people?
Very much.
Look, you have to get it in when you can, okay?
Who is this?
Me and my husband happen to do it often more in the morning than we do at night now.
What?
Yes, we just don't have time at night. Like at night, we're like zonked out. We're like, okay, love
But that's
you,
like
good
a
night, go to
perfect,
bed.
I feel like
good
the last
night.
thing
It's
I
like
want
tucking you in. Yeah.
is to be woken up at 4:30 in the morning with morning breath and girl's hair and have him be like, hey, babe.
But I feel like it's more convenient because then you get to shower afterwards and have your
True.
day versus nighttime, you are sleepy, you do it, you get it in, then you got to shower and then get back in the bed.
No. You just be gross.
Oh, see, yeah,
You're
so
supposed to be
neat.
gross and sleep in it.
I'm not doing the juices and berries.
I
I'm not
low-key feel weird about daylight sex.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I feel, yeah.
Oh no, I want you to see all this
You can't burn any
lusciousness.
candles.
Yeah, it's a weird mood. Like, I don't know. It's so weird because I've had sex during the day and it's just like,
That's
all
weird
right.
for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
For you guys listening
Look.
who aren't seeing it, her whole body language changed. She was just touching her face, like, oh my god,
daylight.
daytime.
I feel like a vampire. No, not right now.
Okay, well, we know that we can have morning sex and it still be successful. But while I have, this queen, pop culture, hip hop expert in here, I want to talk to you about what's going on with Kanye. I know you have to have an opinion on it. He went to the White House. There was some craziness going on.
Right.
People haven't been receptive to what he shared with Donald Trump and the things that he was saying as far as what needs to be done within the community and for the culture.
Yeah.
I want to hear your response. What is going on with Kanye right now?
I think for the most part, I think a lot of, because clearly he's a beloved figure that we all know just in pop culture period and even more so in hip hop. And there's a lot of excusing going on, which we do often with people we love. Like if they're messing up, it's like, you know what, they'll be better next time. Or you know what, they're going through something. But at what point do you hold that person accountable, right? And this is a person who's clearly said his mental issues, like, and kind of also said, I'm not taking pills. Like it's intention. A lot of his moves are intentional when it comes to his own mental health. But it's kind of pressed on us like, you guys, he has mental issues. Don't be judgmental. It's like, maybe the people around him need to realize he has mental issues. Maybe he needs to take action into his mental issues.
I think his camp's not looking out.
Because you can't tell me as a fan, like, stop it. He has mental issues. Tell him as a person, you have something.
A great example of that is Britney Spears. When Britney Spears went through her breakdown.
Oh, that's right. She had one too.
Her dad stepped up and he became her conservator. So you can conserve an adult where you can take legal control of their estate, legal control of the things that they do. You can hospitalize them. You can manage their medical treatment. In a way, when you hospitalize them, you can force them to take medications.
Yeah.
And Britney got it together.
Right.
Because sometimes you're in a point in your life where you need extra support. You need the support of somebody that's outside of your bubble. Someone who's not like in a position where like they have to say yes to you because they don't get paid if they don't. Right.
And love isn't always like enabling. I think people mistake that a lot. Like, because I love you, I don't want to hold you respond. But it's like, that's love too. That's great. You know who it reminds me of too? Mariah. Like, what I'm seeing is like the TRL ice cream moment replay over and over. And it's just keeps happening. And it's like, I know that even the family that's close to him, like, I think a lot of pressure is put on Kim too, right? Because again, this is a man that is old, like he's a man.
I feel like Kim hasn't said any. Like I feel like maybe she'll send a tweet or something, but I don't think a lot of pressure is put on her. I feel like
I do think because I think a lot of blame is put on her. A lot of blame is like, well, look at who his wife is, and this is because you married into that. And it's like, man, at what point do we hold the person accountable for his own actions? Someone on Twitter tweeted who had bipolar disorder herself. And she's like, look, bipolar disorder can make it difficult to express your thoughts, but bipolar disorder is not responsible for your shitty thoughts. Like, if you have shitty opinions or shitty, like, that's you. Your disorder might make it difficult to express it, but that's still what you think.
So these are his actual opinions, actual opinions. You're just saying that
it might be delivered wrong because he always says like I spoke wrong or whatever. And I think this Trump visit was my personal last straw with Kanye because of what he said about the I'm with her movement. Because in that a lot of times when we argue the Hillary versus Trump, it's like, well, she wasn't that great of a candidate. You got to leave it to what it is. If you didn't like her as a candidate, that's your right. But when you said I couldn't stand behind that because saying I'm with her would make me feel like less of a man or less of a father. He said he didn't feel like he could play catch with his son if he stood by a movement like that. That shows me some sort of misogynistic view of I can't be empowering towards a woman because that would make me feel less empowered as a man. Yeah. And I just felt like, oh man, that shows more of what you think of us as women. That's it. That's more than the candidate. It's
more than his disorder. Sex. That's how he really feels.
And I think that was my personal I just unsubscribe. I'm not gonna get angry anymore.
Yeah, I didn't even hear that. I didn't hear that he had said that.
It was a very different because this is what he said. He said, I love Hillary. So stating it's not towards her. I love her, but saying I'm with her didn't make me feel like I could play catch with my son. Right. And it's like, all right, let's dissect that. So you're saying that empowering a woman or standing by a woman or saying I believe in her means I can't be a man. And that's very that sucks.
Don't get me started on how men's feel their sense of self is really attached to the sense that basically I've talked about it before.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Penis
let
is
it
on
out.
the outside. It can be removed. It can be taken off of you. You can lose your masculinity, but as a woman, there is no way for you to lose your femininity. It is inside of us. It is a part of who we are. Whether you lose your breast to an accident or to an injury or an illness, you are still a woman. No one's beating your femininity out of you. But a man, you can say the wrong word to him, and all of a sudden now he's not a man.
Yeah, that's real.
There's this sensitivity, this fundamental fragility in a lot of men, and I think that we need to be not having to be forced to cater to that and to dance around it.
And what that does prove to me, there's this quote that says, equality feels like oppression to the privileged. And it's like,
right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, all we're asking is for equal. But because you've been privileged so much, you think it's oppressing you to give me equal. Like that. And I think that's what I saw there.
Do you think that those were really his opinions, or that he was just saying that?
Because I think
because Trump was sitting
that.
right there,
No.
and
Does
he
it
was
matter?
trying to get. Well,
Yeah.
I have a conspiracy theory that Trump has paid the Kardashians for Kanye, and that there's a lump
rich.
sum that he has
No.
sent to them and that family. Like, I'm just gonna rent him out really quick from the community and use him as a puppet right now.
Maybe, I mean, and maybe Kanye's doing this to sell some album. Maybe Kanye's doing this to stay relevant. Maybe he really thinks in a way that in 2020 he's actually going to be capable of running for office. But no matter what, words have an impact. Words exist for a reason. And him using the words that he's used have impacted the culture.
Right.
No matter what he thinks. And that's why we have to be careful when we're speaking in public, when we're speaking on media. We have to be careful about the words that we choose. We have to do research. We have to sit down and we have to prepare every time we get ready to speak, because somebody's listening to us. And words impact the way that you think in the future, because we are associative learners. You hear a word, it makes you think of another word, which is attached to that word, and attached, and it changes your structure. It changes your neuronal structure when you hear words. So he's changing the brain structure of a lot of people who maybe thought a little differently. And maybe there's a few men that's like, you know what? I guess that's right. I don't want a woman leading me, because a woman leading me means, does that mean that I'm less of a man now? Kanye thinks so. So maybe I'm going to start thinking that way. And I think that no matter what, you know, if you're in a place where a lot of people are watching you and a lot of people are looking at you, you do have a responsibility to be somewhat educated in the things that you say.
Oh no, for sure. And it's clear that he's not, and because he can't articulate himself appropriately, even more reason why he needs to take a seat.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what you stand for if you can't speak on behalf of it and represent correctly. So maybe he needs to send an email to the White House as opposed to a press conference, because whatever he's doing is only getting worse, and he's losing like diehard fans left and right. And so, of course, SNL did a whole little, episode on it where they're clowning, and, it was on another level, but it was hilarious because, they have Kanye over here with his cell phone talking about, look at my jet. It's invisible though, but look at it.
Wonder
they
Woman.
were really taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
We're only feeding SNL, material. But, mental health seems to be something that, when you get to this certain level of celebrityism, that we forget the importance of mental health. We work on our bodies, we go get our facials, we make sure that our hair always looks good for the camera, and then you forget to take care of your mind. And someone who's experiencing, this, trauma with mental health right now is, Selena Gomez. And, she's, back in a mental health facility. And it could have been triggered from, her ex and marriage, but it could have been, triggered from a multitude of things. But she's spoken up about it. Like, hey, this is something that, we all need, that, it's healthy. And so, it's just unfortunate that mental health and getting, therapy and taking care of your mind has such a bad stigma about it. Especially, I hear all the time women who call me up, try to schedule a session, and they're like, I'm trying to convince my guy to come with me to therapy or to, coaching. And, I'm having the hardest time. I'm having the hardest struggle. Why? Why is he fighting you on it? But you understand the benefits, and you understand that, there's area for growth. There's such a bad stigma around, mental health.
Absolutely. I think a part of it also is that women, we speak more. We tend to be more communicative. On average, women use 4,000 more words a day than men do. So we're more accustomed to externalizing our emotions in a verbal way and sitting down with somebody, a girlfriend, a family friend, whoever, and talking to them about our problems. And so I think it's less of a jump for us to make a leap to talking to a professional. But for men, I think they tend to, and I hate to be so general. I hate to be like men versus women, but speaking very generally, there are some men that are incredibly verbal and would rather externalize their language, through language. But a lot of other guys want to externalize through, something active. And so I think that they don't always find value in something that's more sedentary, something that's more contemplative, something that maybe doesn't rely on their strengths. Sometimes people maybe just don't feel strong in that area. Like, well, I don't know exactly how I feel all the time. And are they just going to ask me about my feelings all day? And how is that going to, am I going to just go home and feel worse? Like, what's going to happen? And the fear of the unknown. People want to do things that they've done before, that have worked before. And trying something new can make people really uncomfortable.
Well, how's that working for them? See?
Very good.
Even then, I know it's not to generalize, but also to understand. Like, a lot of times when I've said, like, and I've said this to like my father-in-law, like it's a man's world, and like whether you know it or not, you operate in that in that system. And he's like, well, I'm for women, and it's like it's not necessarily like an individual thing, it's just what the world has, it's been set up for
men to win,
and it's just more so their narrative. It's not even them to, it's like they've got the upper hand to tell how the world's gonna work, right? And even when as children, gender roles are impressed on us from people we love, so we don't even know that it's wrong, because they don't even know that it's wrong, because it's just been that way. And in those gender roles are the boys don't cry, and the way that girls are supposed to be, the homemakers, right? And what that does lead up to, because everything we've seen, especially when you go to therapy, it's like what happened to you as a child, right? And you go and dissect your growing up. I think that in that case, whether you know it or not, you are prepping your child when you're saying things like that to hold things in, to when they're sad, stay sad inside, you know? And then that accumulates, and it becomes men don't do that. Men are strong. Men hold the house down. And of course, there's always the exceptions, but it's no one's fault. It's like the system that's just been set up. And the narrative that's been pushed on all of us.
The culture we found ourselves in is this very bifurcated, where men are supposed to be stoic and still and strong, and women are supposed to be, you know, emotional and irrational,
right?
And nurturing and stay at home, and all of these ideas, when we are so much more dynamic,
right,
than the categories we're forced to exist in. But that, you know, for the past 4,000, 6,000 years, don't get me started, I'll talk about that. I'm trying to be PC today.
Right. You don't need to hold it in. You don't need to hold it in. But I think to your point about childhood and upbringing, now in our adulthood as women, we're now forced with the challenge of trying to create intimacy with someone who doesn't know how to create intimacy, because he was taught that intimacy was not okay, that being soft and emotional and expressing your feelings was not okay growing up. So now, you know, we're in our 30s now trying to describe to a man who's never had to, you know, be open and transparent.
Or they don't know what to do with your emotion. Like, it's like, what do I do with these feelings that you're bringing me? Like, what do I do with these concerns?
No, I'm actually being transparent and open, you know, with how I feel. This is called, you know, actually healthy. And unfortunately, we're not taught that. And it's harder to create relationships with them as well, because they're coming into a situation where us as women have been more welcomed and conditioned to feel, to express ourselves. And so when we're not able to feel close to them, there's a block there. And it's harder for them to build that closeness and build that intimacy and to get into the relationship with them. And we're like, for whatever reason, we don't know what it is. You know, we may not be able to describe it, but it's this inability to connect.
Right.
And it's just, it's a lot of us would be in healthier relationships if we had these conversations and we taught our children and we raised them equally.
That's it. And I think that's what it comes down to, is leaning into your kid's actual strengths as opposed to forcing strengths on a kid. If your daughter is into trucks and building things and rocks and sticks,
let her be that.
Stuff. Let her be good at that instead of forcing her to play with a doll. If your son's really into designing clothes and playing dress up, and he wants the boa and he wants all that stuff, lean into it. Why can't he be a talented fashion designer? Why does he have to be a trucker or a baseball player or a basketball player? You know, and I think it's time that now that we have enough information, we have enough research, we've done enough to know that these are better ways to raise kids.
Oh yeah.
To allow the child kind of to show their own strengths, and you make sure you reinforce them in a loving and caring way.
I think this is a very important conversation, especially like recently, like in my personal life. So I have a 12-year-old going on 13, but also my husband's, one of his best friends has a same aged girl, right? And he has like an issue with that daughter, that he thinks she has a boyfriend, and he was just so upset because she's texting this guy, and he's just so angry at her, and like, come on. And he went to school with her to like look at the kid like, what? I'm her dad. And it's like, scare him. But at the same moment when they talk to my son, it's like, so you got any girlfills?
Right.
So are you talking?
What chicks you picking
So how
up?
many girls? So hey, this is what you got to tell him. And then I told them both, like, look at the way where you're literally raising the boy to be why you get mad at the girl. Because the boy's gonna pursue, but you're upset at the girl if she engages. And I'm like, instead of like being upset at the girl and yes, still raise her, let's raise the boy the same. Let's tell the boy, like, maybe you don't have to pursue. Maybe you should be focused on education. Maybe you should treat women with respect. And I know that's slight, but also when you're like, oh, she's hot. Is she pretty? Is she, like, you don't ask your daughter, hey, is he cute? Like, as a man, as a dude. No, but I'm saying, like, you don't put both, you don't give both equal raising techniques. But yet, when the situation arises with these two parties, you've taught one how to be the aggressor, and you've taught one how to, like, shut down and say no, don't, like, and
to hide secrets.
Right.
It's like now you want your daughter to
you
have
give
to
her the
sneak
shame
around.
for what you're encouraging him to do.
Yeah,
she's afraid you're going to embarrass him. Mm-hmm.
But I do think that's, like, a very important conversation, and it's not to discredit the man role and men and not understanding, but I think it's just realizing it, opening that conversation, that, like, that observation, like, look what we're doing, like, let's see what we're impressing on our own children.
Exactly.
No, for sure. And gosh, Letty, that has to be hard because you have two sons. And Dr. Ali and I say all the time, like, we don't have kids yet. But, you know, we're definitely good. We're in the process, you know, we're thinking about it. We're weighing our options. But two sons, you have two men in your hands who are one day going to be with a woman. They're one day going to, you know, have to, or, you know, seek a partner. And, you know, how do you make it so that they are sensitive, but at the same time masculine? Because men get shunned when they're not, you know, macho and stepping up to the plate and doing, you know, the stereotypical things that a man should be doing. But then when they're not sensitive, now, you know, they're having to go to therapy because their woman can't connect to them.
Right. I think the example you set, beyond anything, and I always think about this, I don't even know if it was some sort of class in college, and it was about raising children, and more so, your child's first example of a woman is you, and his or her first example of a man is his or her dad, or what's there as a father figure. They literally don't know the world outside of your house for at least 5 years. They don't know other family structures, other dynamics. All they see is what's in home. I remember, I was a single mother for a long time, and my son didn't see a father figure in a family like dynamic until he went to elementary school. And I remember him telling me, like, Mom, can I have a dad for Christmas? Like, he thought, like, you can order them, and he's like, can he have a mustache? Like, he was like, but he didn't realize other kids had dads, and he didn't. And he grew up in a home with more women, and for the most part, very strong women. We're all very career driven, and we're all very, like, set and focused. And so I feel in those examples, you kind of gotta double teach. And you got to learn yourself. Like, for me, I had to learn to be the father and show him what a father can be.
Oh, yeah, that's so hard.
But again, for those blessed enough to have both their parents, it's allowing dad to show him dad things, and allowing mom to be the emotional, like, be that presence in their life. Because often it's like, no, he's going to go with me. He's going to learn my way because he's a boy and I'm a boy. And it's like, no, he can also learn this part. You know?
Yeah, he can do both.
Let him learn how to cook. Let him learn how to fix things. Like, for me, one year, my dad, he has three daughters. And so one year for Father's Day, because my dad was a big athlete, and me and my sisters were big athletes in college and all the way up. And he always wanted a boy to go to the major leagues. That was his biggest thing. He was very disappointed that I wasn't a boy. Because I was a very good baseball and softball player. And he was like, you can't even go pro. So, so for Father's Day one year, we dressed up like boys. And we went with him to like Home Depot, and we came home and we fixed the toilet with him.
Oh,
yeah.
We, like, bought all the pieces, and, like,
that's so cute.
And we have a picture of us all wearing, like, baggy jeans with, like, underwear showing and, like, baseball caps. It was ridiculous, but it was just
no, that's super cute though.
But it was just one thing, because my mom is a very huge feminist. Like, my last name, I have two last names, my mom's and my dad's. I did not take my husband's last name. Like, we are like, I wouldn't let my dad walk me down the aisle.
Hold on.
Nope. I told him you can't give something away if it doesn't belong to you.
She was standing up for
So where was he in the ceremony then?
He stood in the front.
Okay,
so I let him stand in the front, and I met him. I walked in by myself, and I met him in the front, and I allowed him to hold my hand, and then I gave my own hand.
You just dapped dapped him up.
Honestly, like
pound, thanks, dude.
If we even see like the slightest, like, and a lot of the times these implications of like the man's world is very slight, but even the ring, right? It was said that cavemen would put a string on their girl's finger to let other cavemen know this is mine. Like, that's the only reason why that even happens, you know? And so even in those things, we see it as this, right? But it originated somewhere.
Oh, I've never heard the caveman theory.
The De Beers family wanted to make more money with diamonds.
Right.
And so they got us invested in the fact that diamonds mean love, but diamonds are stones.
That's where the idea, they invented the engagement ring.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and a lot of it really goes back to monotheistic religion. I've had this conversation a few times. Before monotheistic religion, men and women were equal. Because there were women, gods and goddesses. Every religion had a creator, and the creator was always a woman because women give birth.
Right.
But then when we came with monotheistic religion, the creator became a male, and women became excluded from society.
Even from the narration of it.
Fair. I just think it's so unfair. Why do we have to be the ones that give birth? Why? I do not understand. It's so unfair.
It's how most
I know, but I just wish God would have done it different.
When it happens, no, I promise you, when it happens, and it's a fun comment to say, but when it happens, it feels like the biggest honor. I promise you. Like, I have never felt more fulfilled than when I'm holding my child that I just gave birth to, that nobody else has the power to do but myself, a woman, to give birth to this child. Like, it's incredible. Like, you become the universe, and you just created a planet or another universe.
You're selling me. You're selling me. Keep telling me more.
No, I promise you, and not to get like mushy and deep and emotional about it, but it is because like it's a miracle, and we did that. We do that.
Yep.
And like sorry, Jorge, but he's my gravy, and he came from my nuts, and I'm just like, look, bro, if he was your semen, he could be able to swim right now. He can't swim right now. Therefore, he's not full on just your sperm. Your sperm was the vessel that gave half of him to me to do the rest of the process.
Just like him, though. He looks just like him. That does look like his little twin.
But yeah, and the ancient Egyptians would say that the right hand takes and the left hand gives. And throughout history, the left side of every person has been considered feminine, and the right side is considered masculine, which is why the Catholic Church used to punish people who were left-handed. They used to force people not to be left-handed because the left side was demonized at a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And basically what the ancient Egyptians were saying is that, like, women, femininity gives to society. It gives life, it gives nurturance, it gives love, it gives intelligence, knowledge, and that men also, they also are a huge part of society. They're balanced. You can't give and bring something new if you don't take away something old. War, destruction, protection, you have to have both.
Yeah.
And I think that we've almost fallen out of balance, and that now we have this experience where we're only talking about one side, where one side is more important, but both sides are very important.
That's a hard reality. I don't even know where that comes from. Because you hit your 9-month mark, and there's like, oh, you still got 4 more weeks.
Yeah, and it's like, wait, so this is really like a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're telling me this is a year-long situation, and you're trying to sell me a bill of goods.
Well, I just told Shay the other day, I was like, you don't have permission to drink when I'm pregnant. Like, you don't get to drink. You have to gain weight just like I do. Oh no,
it don't happen.
You're going through this with me. You don't get to enjoy life. There is no you enjoy life and you get to be happy for a year while I'm miserable.
Can we stop thinking that that's a negative? It's not. Pregnancy's not negative. Look, this is what's stopping you. Look at how bad you're looking at pregnancy and birth.
It makes me
You're
so
gonna be
freaking
like,
tense.
damn, I didn't know. What's great and what's beautiful, and it shows us, and here, like, I always tell everybody this, it shows us how our body just knows what to do. Like, our brain might be new, but our body, this is old world. This is like, all right, I, like, literally in that moment when it comes time to push, like my first pregnancy, I didn't have any epidural, anything like.
Oh, that's
and
super gangster.
It's crazy how my body.
There's
a moment where your body is like, all your insides go up and then go down, as if it's just like, all right, it's time.
It just knows what to do.
And when you see that process happening of your body changing and knowing what to do, kind of like on autopilot, you're just in awe because you're like, I'm doing this. I promise you, it opens you up to it opens you up to yourself, and then you're in awe of you because it shows you how powerful you are. Because a lot of the times, as much as we are women and we're empowered, it's like a lot of time times we're hushed on our power and on our beauty and on our like true goddessness. And when that happens, there ain't nobody that can tell you, it doesn't hurt. Oh,
Get out of here.
yeah, it's
I can do
easy. Yeah,
anything.
nobody. It's just you and God and the baby, and
No, and
it's
that's
like
it.
I did this.
You have your goddessness. No one can tell you anything else.
So I know we're steering, but you just talked about birth and how it makes you feel like a goddess. Is that the same experience though, even though, because you're carrying it, for women who have C-section? Because hospitals now, and women can now opt into, hospitals are pushing more for C-section because it's, it's quicker, saves time. They say that it's health for the baby. But when you have a C-section, you're not going through the natural, birth. But I know people who are choosing C-section now because they don't want anything going through the canal.
I'm not sure that C-section is optional. I feel like C-section
it's optional
is
now.
like
You can schedule your appointment. I want a C-section. I do not want to have natural
I think that might be the decision that I'm going to make.
Really?
Yeah. My mom couldn't give natural birth. And so I'm concerned that I will have the same issue. I went into fetal heart distress. I almost died in the canal. I got stuck. Couldn't come out.
That was my second son,
Yeah,
too.
so they had to do an emergency surgery. And so for me, obviously, I'm going to sit down and talk to my doctor and see what options you have. But I feel like, if that is the only option you have, then do it. But I don't know. I know, because I do know there's some things that children, so there's this issue of kids go to the bathroom inside of the uterus if they're there a little too long. It's called meconium. But one of the force of being born through such a small space pushes a lot of the amniotic fluid out of the baby's lungs, pushes it out of their nose so that they can take that first breath. And so I know that there are some things, obviously natural birth does a lot of amazing things for kids. And so when you do it in the other way, they have to suck the stuff out.
Synthetic.
They have to do a lot of different things to kind of replicate some of those things. So I'm assuming it's probably, I'm not an MD, so I can't really.
Right. But in the same moment, those couple hours or those moments is not equal to the 9 months and the whole process is what you see, even kicking, even hearing heartbeat, even all of that. And it's unless you've been through it, and not to be like, you guys are missing out. But when it does, does happen, I promise you, your perception of what it is gonna like everything until you experience it. Yeah, until
no C-section.
No, my second though was super hard. Like same fetal heart distress.
Oh wow.
Was stuck in the canal, and then we got that. My doctor came in and was like, "Look, if he doesn't." If he doesn't peek his head through, I'm gonna have to do an emergency C-section. In that moment, you're not thinking like, "Oh my God, it's scar." You're thinking like, whatever helps him,
save my baby. Yes.
And again, that's your own. That shows you, wow, like I'm willing to sacrifice whatever for their well-being.
Yeah.
And that selflessness is something that you'll admire about yourself. Because of course, we're and we should be. We live life individually. We live life for our best to survive, thrive, and persevere. So of course, we're gonna make decisions like that. But in moments like that, you don't even care about self. It's baby, and that's what's divine about us.
Okay, I'm gonna embrace it.
I love this conversation.
Letty always gives it to me. She's always going.
You know what I was also want to say, like being feminist and being like having that like view or like that empowering of women, like we said earlier with like the yay stuff, like to guys, because we empower women so much, that doesn't mean you're lesser. That it's good to feel like appreciation for women.
That's it.
And being one, appreciate yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're told here and there like hush everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Me loving being a woman doesn't mean I hate you being a man. Like, and that's why I kind of like the womanist movement.
Oh, that's fire. I
Which
never
is,
heard that.
Yeah, which is, it's more of because a lot of African American women feel like they were excluded. So the feminist movement really was like, they say like a white woman's movement, because black men didn't have the same societal power to subjugate black women. So black women were always equal with men in their households. There was never really a division between like, well, I'm a man, so I'm better. It really wasn't the case. Everybody was always working. And a lot of times in the African American community, they would die young, they would die early, they were killed. Things would happen to them, they were incarcerated, so women had to step up more. So there wasn't this idea that women were weak or small or ineffective, and so they created the womanist movement, which was a movement that obviously, supported the ideologies and the support of women, but also reinforces the necessity of males in the family structure, the necessity of males in the child rearing and in the dynamic, and how, to make strong women, you have to have men. You have to have men, And it's a family structure. We all exist together, you know. And so I really kind of align with that a little bit more, created by Alice Walker. And it's just
I need to look into that.
Yeah,
that's
legit.
awesome.
Yeah.
The womenist movement. So when it comes to, you know, this huge disparity between, you know, male and female, you know, it's unfortunate that some of us feed into it. Especially with the power that we give men, because we still expect them to be the leaders and to still court us. But isn't that feeding into it as well? I'm like throwing this out there to be controversial. When we expect him to do his basic ginger roles that he's supposed to be doing, when we expect him to be, you know, taking the bill, asking us out, being the one coming up to us to court us or to, you know, express interest in us, aren't we giving our power away? Aren't we, when it comes to like
we
the
want
dating
the perks,
process?
but we don't want the other side of it. Like I want the perks of you being the man.
We want him to get on his knee.
Yeah.
We want him to confess his undying love to us. We want him to send us flowers. How come we don't send them flowers? Like we feed into it as well. And we pick and choose when it's, not to say when it's convenient, but we pick and choose like when we want equal rights versus when we don't.
Well, I will say I do send my husband flowers.
Good for you. I don't send mine.
He actually went out of town, and I actually called the hotel to see if they could leave something for him in his room, but they were like, "We don't do that, man."
Do you open his car door?
I buckle his seatbelt sometimes.
That's sweet. But do you open his car door? Do you walk on the left side or on the right side? Like he's supposed to.
He was driving yesterday, and I actually did go to his side of the door, and I opened his door. And I had him sit down, but it was kind of like me being playful. But I'm all about equality. So my husband does make most of the money now, but that's because I'm building something so I can make the money later. Because I want him to stop working. I want him to be able to live his dream, and his dream isn't, you know, it's being creative. He wants to be a full-time creative, and that costs money.
I want my husband to be a stay-at-home dad. Yes. I want him to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm trying to tell more women, let them be stay-at-home dads. We can focus on our career. They can take care of the household. I trust him to do it. I definitely want him to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm excited about that. Okay, we have gone completely way left from where we were supposed to be talking about jealousy.
But that's important too. It's a good groundwork to lay.
Okay, so now I'm gonna lay it out there then. Who's more jealous, women or men?
I think women vocalize their jealousy more, or they express their jealousy more, because we know how to. We know to say, "Were you looking at her?" Or we know how to say like things in that nature, versus the guys just like peeping game and may just internalize it, but I don't think they don't feel it.
So we may vocalize it more, but we don't feel it more, or we do? Who feels jealousy more? Like who feels more threatened when it comes to someone taking over their territory? Because earlier you said back in the caveman days, men were wrapping, you know, strings around, you know, fingers. That's to claim someone's territory. That's to say like,
this is mine.
This is mine, not yours. We still till this day feel the need to pump our chests up and do the same.
I will say on a biological level, there have been a number of studies on jealousy, and they found that one of the hormones that powers jealousy is testosterone. So there's testosterone and cortisol involved, and cortisol is a stress hormone. So obviously, there's a level of stress, which is someone's coming on my territory, whether it be woman, man, whatever. And then there's a level of testosterone that increases, which gives you the aggression to defend your territory. And so just by nature that those are two of the hormones that are most involved, we women have testosterone as well. We produce less than men do, but men tend to be the ones that produce the highest levels of testosterone. So you make your own. You make your own judgments.
They're more jealous, but to Letty's point, they just don't express it.
But even so, I think there's also levels to jealousy, and I think jealousy can be a good thing because it can give you that ting of like, all right, I need to step my game up.
Yep.
Or whether it be jealousy in career or jealousy in relationship. But it also lets you know, wow, my partner's important. Maybe I feel jealous that so-and-so's around him flirting. Like, hey, I love you. Like, even I think those little reminders, it can be a reminder, or it can be, I remember you spoke to me about this yesterday, it could be an alarm. Yeah. And I think it's in which way you bring it into your life, how you hold jealousy as like regard of extremity in your life.
Do you think that partners ever get jealous of each other's success?
I think that's possible. Like, I hate you, Mari.
So I'm just asking.
No, this isn't like my current. Thank goodness to God, and I'm very thankful for the partner that I do have. But I told Mari I don't want to speak about. My
I wasn't even talking about him. I just wanted to hear your guys' opinion.
It was just very odd because I had never heard. Like you hear the phrase like, oh, you intimidate men or like, but it was just like, come on, like what? If we're always thinking, because we get like, the guy doesn't always have to pay for stuff, you would think, okay, when the girl pays for stuff, that the guy's gonna be like, oh shoot, like,
right.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times the guy's like, oh man, I'm inadequate, or like, why is she getting, or why are you doing that, or like, slow your roll, or like, say things to maybe discourage your partner in which you're supposed to be supporting. And I think that's very possible on both ends. I think it can happen to a woman and to a man. I just don't know where that would stem from. I don't know where that...
I feel like only because, we're on the topic of, different gender roles as well, that we have grown accustomed to expecting the man to be more successful. And now that women are climbing the ladder and we're becoming more successful, we're experiencing probably jealousy more from men who aren't used to those differences in success.
Got you.
Yeah, and now almost we're pushing them to be more successful than us. And so if I'm making Beyonce amounts of money, that means you need to be making Jay-Z amounts of money. Wait, does Jay-Z make more than Beyonce?
No, I think...
Well, I know together they're billionaires.
Yeah. Right, because they say that. But
anyway, it's like...
on the elevator.
Because, we have this...
I think she might have beat him.
She may have.
I think this past year they reported that she was making more than him. I almost... think she came in.
I know her tours are crazy and they do so much more numbers than any music artist.
I can't imagine that Jay-Z is making more than her at this point. But so it kind of pushes.
But also look at the work she puts in to get that. Jay-Z's not freaking doing acrobatics on stage the way that
and
Beyonce
he's on.
She works out in
he's
heels.
on her tour. I'm just saying he's on her tour.
I love that. So
She's
what's
not on
happening
his.
is we're pushing these men to, they have to make more than us in the social conception of it. And so now we're pushing them because we're doing better. We're not being held back by our gender anymore. We can go to school. We can do the things we want to do. We can hold better.
We have a lot more resources than we did before.
And so we're rising ourselves to the occasion. We're like, oh, I can get a job. I can be in the C-suite. I'm going. I'm gonna try to be, an executive, whatever. And so now these men are like all of a sudden getting this pressure of like, well, I still have to be the man of the house, but now I have to make like $500,000 a year because she's making $200,000 a year. Like, I don't know if I can do that. Or maybe now she's making $200,000, so I have to make $250,000.
Right.
And now there's this additional pressure. And so I think that once we begin to let go of these gender norms and we begin to like not talk about the stay-at-home dads in a way that's negative and really like leaning into that. Like my uncle was a stay-at-home dad for years and he was a great dad.
So I do want to talk about that. Why can't we get on board with the stay-at-home dads? Why do we feel like we should be the ones that are at home being taken care of? Because I know a lot of women who want to date to be kept. I know a lot of women who want to date to be the provider. There's both that's going on. But when I hear women say, oh, I won't date a guy who doesn't make more than me or who's not making at least, X, Y, and Z figures, why? Why can you not or see yourself happy with somebody who's not financially making more than you? What if he's better at a million other things, though?
Well, I think personally... not that they make more money, but they have to have some sort of drive or some sort of ambition to themselves. Because again, not to say that if you don't have money, that means you don't have ambition. But if you're not making money and I'm holding us down, and like, all right, use this time to pursue yours. And I see that in both ways right now. Like you said, your husband makes more than you now, and he's because you're gunning, you're like hitting the ground running, going for what and it's like you're still proving like I'm not lazy, I'm not letting you.
She's working hard.
Me, in the same respect, do that as well. I think there's a difference in like I'm making the money and he's just chilling. Like there's no kids, but he's just like he's watching
Nobody
Mari.
needs to be sitting on your couch,
right?
Not doing
so
nothing.
like I think it's not about what you make; it's about like what is your ambition, like what is your drive, like
Well, I think it's oftentimes hard because we say that we want an alpha man, but we don't necessarily know how to deal with an alpha man if you're an alpha female. And so one of the things is if you think that he's supposed to be, the breadwinner or that he's supposed to be, more macho and, taking care of you guys, well, now you put on, you enforce these roles on him, and you could potentially be the person who is the provider, and you're missing out on a ton of creative folk out there. Because unfortunately, if he decides that he's going down a creative path, that's the part that's hard to get with a man who's in the creative industry, because it takes a lot more work and drive to make money doing that. And so a lot of us alpha women miss out on maybe some great betas out there that would make us happy, that would be able to work with our schedules, be able to work with, all the things that we have going on in life, because we put it in our minds that we have to have alpha and alpha together, as opposed to alpha female getting with her nice creative beta.
I don't think we should blame the girl side either, though, because I remember the relationship in specific that I had, and I'm very much an alpha, and he was very much a creative that was like slowly getting to it, but he never got lack of support from me. Where the trouble came is then he's like, oh, you make so much, like him him bringing it up so much about how much more I made, and where I'm just like, I never am like, I paid for this, I paid for that, I paid for this, and how, like, look at you, where is this, when is this coming? And it was like, handle what you need to handle, I got you, because I know one day whatever you're working towards, it's just like persistence is always gonna get you something. Whatever you're working towards, if you stay persistent, it's gonna get you somewhere. And at the same moment, as an alpha female, it's not to knock the beta male, but it's also to, like, beta males don't feed into the insecurity you may have being with an alpha female, because it's just one's gonna bring down, one's doing this to the other one. Like if you're either the insecure one, or if you're the one that's like, come on, where's it at?
Right. So where's the money?
It goes both ways.
But yes, but the difference is, like, you got into that relationship with that person. You signed up for that type of relationship, like that dynamic.
No,
I'm saying, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people won't even date someone who's not in corporate America, like a creative type. If he, wants to open up a studio, or he, wants to start a clothing line, or he's a painter, a lot of women won't even be open to that because they're doing so well, and this guy's not coming with it.
Well, personally, we were both like right here when we started talking, and then my trajectory just kind of went faster than his, and so I think that was the we were equals at one point. I still felt like we were equals after, but it's like, it sucks that like money or status makes someone think you're not your equal versus like moral high ground and integrity,
intelligence, and drive. There's so many other things that are important, and we do measure a person's worth by money, which is so unfortunate, because it's such a bad measure of worth, or of quality, or of character.
You're going to get it wrong if you measure by, because by that point, Trump is like the saint almighty if we're doing by money.
You know what, a good question my husband asked me on one of our first dates that I really appreciate, and I tell my clients to use till this day, is make the person who you're going out with in advance, like early on, to ask them what their definition of success is. Because if their definition of success are achievable milestones, then you know that this person's level-headed. But if this person is like, oh, well, when I get a yacht, and when I get, the penthouse suite, and, when I get, this, horse, those things, if that's your level of success, you'll never feel successful in our relationship then. You're always going to feel like you and I don't have enough. You're always going to be dissatisfied, and you're never going to feel as if, if you're measuring it on how much money we have in our account, well, at what point do we get to be happy in our relationship and feel like we've reached some levels of success?
I think that comes back to jealousy as well, right? Is that if your measure is something that's external, right? There's like external measurements and there's internal measurements. External is like money, cars, stuff, women, whatever. But then there's those internal measures. It's harder to be jealous of someone that's like, I'm so jealous of your considerateness. I'm so jealous of how caring you are with your kids. It's harder when you have these intrinsic drives, these drives that, I want to be a person who's trustworthy. I want to be the person that when my friends are having a bad day, they know they can come to me. That's what I want for my life. That's when I know I'm successful. I want to be a person that when you have a question, I'm the one who can answer it. It's harder to tap in all that jealousy, but it's like, well, if I want, $5 million, there's only but so much money out there.
Right.
And if you have some of it, I want that.
Right.
Like, why don't I have that? And so I think that is really a very different thing. And then that desire of external things can lead to a lot of this jealousy between partners or just in general.
Yeah. What I will say, like with my personal relationship, my husband is very Jay-Z mentality. He's very, and I don't even think that it's like, because he does have, I think, the monetary or the like he wants to own a building or he wants to have this certain car. But I think those are good goals and motivators, but not the best standards. And so like if you use money as a standard by which you judge if something's good or not, then you're going to be easily swayed into maybe some bad things.
Yeah.
He's not, like, I've seen him turn down offers. He works with an artist, and they've turned down offers by way of like their moral code, regardless of the amount of money.
They still have integrity,
they also have money as a motivator because they want, clearly, you have to. It's about balancing.
No, for sure.
And I think that's something I admire about him, because I'm just so like, this has no cause, this has no purpose. Like, you got, like, it's like, what's the purpose? What's the and what's like. It's just different motivators, dynamic. But it's not wrong, you know?
No, it's not. And you do want, and I think part of, maybe his experience, which I can relate to too, is some of that drive comes from, if you come from very, very, very humble beginnings and never having as much as the other kids in your classroom, or seeing, other families that have more, and you feeling like, well, dang, I don't ever want to go back to that. So whatever I have to do to get out of like what I came from as a child, to make sure that my kid has more, or to make sure that I can take care of my family, I need to do whatever that is. I need to hustle. I need to work hard, bust my ass. And a part of that has been my mentality as well. Even though I'm in, entertainment, and I understand it's a long process, a lot of what my level of success will be is defined from me being able to take care of my mom. And some of that is cultural too. So I think there's a lot of elements that play into, how we define success. But part of why we're so hard on ourselves is because when we don't have that money in our account, or when we don't have that specific goal, we feel like we haven't achieved anything. And then we do this, social comparison, especially with everything on IG. And it feels like, well, gosh, I'm not successful. I'm not doing anything enough with my life. But if we had stuff that was more measurable, of, what, by this time next year, I want to come out with my calendar. Shout out to Letty's calendar that she has right now going on. What's the name of the calendar?
Rhyme Capture.
Rhyme Capture, yes. And it has like a rap line.
Yeah, it's like inspired by, because personally, not to like, what is it? Plug, but I love hip hop. But I'm not a rapper. I'm not a producer. Like, I can't sing. Like, none of that. But I wanted to find a way to express the love and the passion that I have for it. And so I'm always I'm just the lyrical head. And a lot of times lyrics pop out as pictures to me. And so I figured, like, what if I get rap lyrics that I'm inspired by, make like a picture or a moment, and then be the muse in it, right? And so that's what I do. Every photo is inspired somehow, some way by like a rap line.
But I love that.
Yeah, and
that's an achievable goal. I want a calendar. I'm going to do that. But it's not, I need a yacht by next year, or so I'm not successful. You're like, you have something that you can check off. It's like a realistic, achievable goal that's getting you one step closer to the $1 million in the bank.
Yeah, the creation part is amazing.
So you get to allow yourself to feel successful.
Yeah, and I think also when you're focused on your own goals, because they're like you were saying, like you were kind of talking about like SMART goals, they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time limited, then you're not focusing so much on what other people are doing. And then I think jealousy is less likely to happen when you're just so focused on your own momentum and your own movement, because you've created something that you can actually do, but is a little bit challenging for you. So now you're not so much like, oh, look at her butt.
Yeah.
Right.
So cute. I gotta have that butt. I'm the worst. I hate my life because my butt sucks. It's like
we're so good at like knowing our shortcomings and knowing other people's strengths versus the opposite. And it's like,
good point, which is why I have to throw out there that you need to do a SWOT analysis, like a personal SWOT analysis on yourself. That's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities for growth, and threats. And it's very used, oftentimes in the business world, but we need to do it on ourselves and see, like, actually write down your strengths, write down your weaknesses, and then look at, what, actually, I have a lot of opportunities right here that I can grow or work on. And then, what are the threats? What are the things that like may hold me back in the world? But doing also too on your relationship. Like, you guys can do that together as a couple, and that way there's less jealousy. You guys can grow together. You guys can work on these things together. You guys should have relationship goals, like actually write out relationship goals. And then you should have your own SWOT analysis, but then have your relationship SWOT analysis too. So there's always things for you guys to be working on. And then together you get to check those things off. You get your personal checklist and then your, partner checklist. Yeah. But most people don't do that. Most people are just focused on like, I think
most people don't know how to bring that up, because it's not like, hey, we're at dinner. Okay, so what are our SWOTs? Like, let's swat or whatever. And I think a lot of times you don't really press for help in your relationship until like you're arguing, or there was a great big like there was like something huge bad happened in your relationship that you're like, maybe we should seek someone's help, but then the next day you're cool, so it's like, oh no, we're fine, look. And I think that's the biggest thing, and that's when this conversation should happen, when you're having a good day. When you're like, hey, do you not want to have those crappy days anymore?
Right.
And it's like, let's do this SWAT. Let's do this exercise.
Say, I know you think it's
just
corny,
just
but
entertain me,
just
guy. Like, if it's tougher to get your partner, like, just entertain me.
Yeah, especially if you have a partner that's not so tapped into emotion, being tapped into the concreteness of a SWAT, being tapped into how it lays everything out in front of you. And it's not about emotions. It's not about, how do you feel about our weaknesses? It's just about what are our weaknesses. Is it that we don't communicate great? Is it what, and then how do we go about creating goals and things that are very concrete to help us get to where we want to be? How do we want to work on these weaknesses? How do we want to work on these threats to our relationship?
It's strategic, and men can get behind that. They're like, oh, so I don't have to say, how I feel. Nope. Okay, I can do that.
Right.
I can do this. This makes sense to me. I like this. Yeah. Okay,
so it's getting closer to the end of the show, so we have to wrap up. But I want to make sure that, Letty, you let people know, like, if they want to hear from you, where can they find you? Like, plug all your stuff right now, because you have a lot going on, and you are dynamic, mama, friend, freaking host, like hip hop head, everything.
Well, I do want to talk about something that I recently experienced.
Oh.
And I feel like I think it's crazy how certain times will call for a certain part of you to rise up. Maybe a part of you never thought was even in you like that. And for me recently, it's been more of my outreach to not necessarily, like, I don't even want to niche it. Just my outreach to people and to serve. And I think the biggest thing, especially some people are questioning, like, what's my purpose? What's my identity? Yeah. Where do I go? A lot of a way to help you find that is to get lost in service, whatever that may be.
Oh, for sure.
Find something that calls at you, and in that you're gonna see fulfillment in ways that you see, like, wow, this fulfills me. Maybe I shouldn't think like money does or a person does. And it's like, now when you see something like giving or something like whatever it may be fill you up like that, you're not gonna be so needy for these other things, and then you'll be clear-headed.
You're more grateful, yeah.
Yeah. So recently, I know we've all seen, on CNN, or these pictures of children that have been separated from their families and they're in cages.
Yes.
And if you're a human, it breaks your heart, because it is in our bodies to have empathy and compassion. And if we were seeing someone out this window getting hurt or locked in a cage, our natural inclination is to help that person. Right. And I think the biggest thing is when we see these things on our phones, we have that feeling, but then we also kind of either brush it off because we don't really see a physical way to help, or we may get lost in our own sadness of, oh my God, this world is so messed up.
And we're detached from it.
I can't help this person on my phone. How can I help this kid that is so, like, who can I donate to? And sometimes even donating it feels like, not that it's not good, but it doesn't feel like you've done enough, because I can give you my money, but it's like, I just want to hug that kid.
Yeah.
So I posted something about that, and I know in this age it's about debating and whose side are you on. And my post was more so, I don't want to fight, I don't want to argue, I don't want to stress each other out with, like, it's this person's fault, or Obama used to do this, or Trump is doing it now, or, like, it's not about that. It's about the fact that this is a situation that's happening, and I just somehow would like to know if there's anything I can give this kid a blanket, right? So someone reached out to me and was like, Letty, and I think the biggest thing to notice about this was, we think it's in Texas, we think it's far away. It happens everywhere, and it happens in California. So it was someone who reached out to me that works at a facility that is accommodating children of this nature that have been separated from their families, that are in the transition period between, like, what's going to happen with my life, right? A very scary period, right? So in that, I was able to talk to the facility, and I was able to go visit with these children, and it was a experience that did as much for me and the people that volunteered than it did as well as it did for the children. So I would like to do this again in December, and I think the biggest thing is, it's not about giving them, like, yes, they need their basic necessities. But I think one thing that we forget is how much comfort you can get in listening to music or playing with the ball. So the only thing I'm gonna plug is that in December I'm gonna give like a website where you can donate soccer balls. Where you can buy it and it'll ship to me.
Oh, perfect.
And you could donate soccer balls. You can donate MP3 players, movies, things that will comfort somebody in that type of situation. And I think that's the one thing that I want to plug.
Give them your social.
Okay, Instagram letty.set.go and Twitter Letty Letty.
And website to get the calendar.
LettySego.com.
And you can play with my Twitter and stroke my Instagram at Spicy Mari. And Dr. Ali, where can they find you?
You can find me at AllisonHicks.com, ALLYCINHICKS.
All right, there you have it. You have just been spiced.